Hey there! Welcome to Understanding Common Core Math. This video series is designed for parents and teachers who are looking to better understand the Common Core and are looking to find ways to support kids in their development of math skills. This video addresses the first of the measurement and data standards, standard K.MD.A.1. The standard states that students should be able to describe measurable attributes of objects. Let's chat a bit about what this standard means. Suppose that you are handed an apple. What are some ways that you might describe the apple? You might talk about the color of the apple or the size of the apple. You might talk about whether or not the apple is heavy or light. If you take a bite of the apple, you might describe the taste or the texture, and so on. Now, which of these attributes would we consider to be measurable? Can you measure the taste? Well, maybe. Can you measure the color? Again, maybe. Can you measure the size of the apple? This is definitely a yes. But what are some ways that you could measure the size of the apple? You could measure how tall the apple is, or how wide the apple is. You could measure the weight of the apple. You could measure the volume of, or the amount of space taken up by the apple. Length, width, weight, and volume are examples of measurable attributes of an object. More importantly, they are measurable attributes that kindergarten students can conceptualize, at least in simple terms. This is what standard K.MD.A.1 is all about. We want kindergarten students to start thinking about the characteristics of objects that they can measure. Let's look at a couple of examples of how you can approach the standard with your student. Suppose that you hand your kindergarten student a bowl. What are some measurable characteristics of that bowl? Well, you could measure the width across the bowl. You could measure the height or depth of the bowl. You could measure the thickness of the wall of the bowl. You could also measure how heavy the bowl is. Another measurable attribute of the bowl is how much it can hold, or the capacity or volume. You could measure this by figuring out how much water can fit inside. These are several examples of ideas that we would want your child to brainstorm and think about. Note that in this standard we are not actually asking the student to measure these characteristics. We are simply asking them to identify characteristics that could be measured. Measuring objects will actually start in first grade. Let's say that you hand your student a stuffed animal. What are some measurable characteristics of that toy? You could measure the length, or the width, or the height of the stuffed animal. You could measure how heavy the stuffed animal is. You could measure how much space the toy takes up on a shelf or in a cubby, aka the volume. These are probably the most common examples of measurable attributes that we want your child to recognize. So, there you go. Standard K.MD.A.1 involves helping your child begin to recognize that you can measure certain characteristics of objects. Having your child identify and describe in simple terms what can be measured about objects is the key to meeting this standard. Remember that we are not looking for super highly advanced descriptions from your child, just enough to show us that he or she is recognizing that things can be measured and can be measured in different ways. If you have any questions about the meaning of this standard, please feel free to leave a comment or some feedback. I would also encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you found it helpful. And be sure to check out the other videos in this series. Thanks for watching.